New tonight, diversity took center stage at the mayor's town hall with LGBTQ topics on the agenda.
Eyewitness News reporter Roxie Bustamante takes us inside a town hall focused on inclusion.
Dozens of advocates, residents, and city leaders showed up for tonight's town hall meeting to talk about issues affecting the LGBTQ community and what the city is doing to protect their rights. One by one, people addressed their questions and concerns with Mayor Ron Nirenberg, as well as public safety concerns with San Antonio Police Chief William McManus. Topics range from how the city is providing safe and affordable housing as San Antonio continues to grow, as well as the ongoing debate of paid sick leave, and if the mayor's LGBTQ advisory committee would consider a more sustainable way to maintain the rainbow-themed crosswalk on Evergreen and May Avenue. Now, this summer will be 1 year since the crosswalk was installed, and a concerned resident asked if there could be a way to help or provide more resources for the group that currently cleans the crosswalk overnight.
What's really next is that right now we are an ad hoc committee that's kind of connected to this mayor. We're not a committee that is a standing committee. And I think it's important that we become a standing city committee and that we are not something that goes away.
This is part of the Mayor's Town Hall meeting series. Now, if you want to make sure your voice is heard, you can sign up ahead of the next meeting, which is scheduled for next month. Reporting downtown, Roxie Bustamante, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.